Welcome back to GoDoBe EmPowerMe, a space where we learn the how, what, and why of what achievers do to create some really amazing outcomes in their lives. I'm Joe Guskowski, your host, your guide, and your coach throughout this journey. Now today, we're going to begin to explore the basic idea of the human potential. What is it? How does it work? And how the heck can we use this to help us reach our goals? The first thing we need to do is we need to start by defining exactly what is the human potential. Well, first, the words human refers to us. Of course, the characteristics of being a person. The word potential refers to this idea of having or showing a capacity to become or to develop into something in the future. So it's the simple idea that suggests that any and all individuals like you and I already have this innate capacity within ourselves to create some really amazing outcomes in the world. First, let me say that there are numerous examples of people throughout history who have overcome various challenges and difficulties in their lives and who have ultimately expressed the idea of the human potential. You might even recognize some of these names that I'm going to share with you. They include individuals like Thomas Edison, Jane Austen, Mahatma Gandhi, Marie Curie, Leonardo da Vinci, Nelson Mandela, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, Albert Einstein, Martin Luther King, and countless others. So let's start by asking an important question about what all these individuals that I've just named, what is it that they all have in common? Now I want you to take a moment and think about that for a second. At its core, what is it that's consistent through all of these individuals throughout history? It's not money. It's not that they all have amazing looks, or that they have a particular color, or gender, or shape, or size, or even that they came from the same historical period. It's none of that. So what is it that they all have in common? Well, it's that they all have a functioning brain. And they use that brain to make various choices throughout their lives. And it's these choices that then led them to have the kind of lives that they ended up living. Now at first, this may seem rather simplistic or even anticlimactic. But the more we understand this key idea, the more power it gives to us. Just think about what this means for a second. That if we too have a functioning brain, that maybe we too can do some amazing things. The question for us, of course, is not whether or not our brain works. It's more about, are we using our brains properly? Let me share a little story with you that'll illustrate how typically most people in the world live their lives. This was originally written in 1959 by James Agri. The story basically goes that one day a farmer was walking through the forest when he happened to come across an abandoned baby eagle. He knew that if he left the eagle in the woods that it would be destroyed and devoured by a predator. So he decided to bring the eagle back to his farm where he put it in the hen house with all the chickens. And over time, the eagle learned to play with the chickens, to eat like a chicken, and eventually to behave like a chicken. About a year or so later, a naturalist happened to be walking by the farm when he noticed the eagle was near the barn playing with all these chickens. So the naturalist asked the farmer if he could set the eagle free. The farmer agreed. So the naturalist walked over to the eagle and gently lifted it off the ground and raised it in his palms. He looked the eagle in the eyes and said, "You are an eagle. You belong in the sky. Spread your wings and fly." The eagle looked at him confused, looked back towards the chickens playing on the ground, jumped from the naturalist's hand, back onto the ground, and disappeared into the barn to play with all the other chickens. Now, the naturalist was a little befuddled by this, so he decided to try again. But this time, after he found the eagle, he took it into the barn, climbed up to the top of the rafters, onto the roof through an opening in the roof. He carried the eagle gently in his palms as he walked over to the peak of the roof, and he held the eagle over the edge. He looked the eagle deep into its eyes and said, "You are an eagle. Spread your wings and fly." The eagle looked at him very confused. She looked back at the ground where all the chickens were running around. Then she jumped from the naturalist's hands onto the roof, from the roof into the barn, and then back down onto the ground where she disappeared again with all the chickens. The naturalist asked the farmer if he could try one more time the very next day. So early the next morning, before sunrise, the naturalist returned. He went into the hen house, found the eagle, took her out of the barn and into his car, drove away from the barn, found the tallest mountain area he could find. He parked at the top of the mountain, took the eagle out with him. He walked over to the highest ledge that he could find. He held the eagle out over the edge of the mountain. He looked deeply into her eyes and he said, "You are an eagle. Spread your wings and fly." The eagle looked at him terrified, trembling, not sure of where she was or who she was. She stared frozen there in his palms. But the naturalist, he raised her up higher into the rising sun, and he said to her, "You are an eagle. You belong in the sky. Spread your wings and fly." The eagle looked into the distance where the farm was, back into the sky above her, until finally, with a triumphant call, she soared high into the heavens. Now, the message or the moral of this story for us is that we humans are like the eagle in this story. You see, we too have the potential to soar into the heavens, and yet we also can be so easily influenced and distracted or diverted away from that true potential or our true nature. And we, because of the people around us or the situations that we allow ourselves to be in, we too act like chickens. We follow what everybody else does. We give up our power to those who are around us. The difference between the eagle in the story and us is that the eagle didn't have a choice. It was placed into the environment by the farmer, whereas we, especially when we're adults, we choose our environment. Don't believe me? Let's take a quick look. Who is it that chooses what we read? Who is it that chooses what we watch? Who is it that chooses what we listen to, or where we go to hang out, or who we hang out with, or who we spend our free time with? I could go on and on, but I think you get the point. The key message here is that we and where we are is not because somebody else put us here. It's because we allowed ourselves to be here. We chose to be here. We made this choice. In other words, we allowed ourselves to accept whatever situation that we happen to be in as our true reality, that's all there is for us. It's like we said in the last module, we're here today because of decisions that we made 6 months ago. And if we want to be in a new, different place 6 months from now, then we're going to have to make a new choice starting today. If we don't, we're likely going to end up exactly where we're already heading. Now, let me try to illustrate this point of choice a little more clearly by explaining the life of what we're going to refer to going forward as a modern-day zombie. No, it's not the brain-eating kind. It's more like the brain-draining kind. Let me introduce you to a friend. You might even know this person. This is their life. They wake up in the morning, they jump into the shower, they do their grooming, whatever it happens to be, they put on their clothes, they eat their breakfast, they say goodbye to their family, they drive to work or they take the bus or transit to work, they do their job, they have their lunch, they work a little more, chat with a friend or two, then they drive home, they greet their family, they eat their dinner, they watch TV, they scroll through their social media, they go to bed, then they get up the next morning and they do the exact same thing. And they repeat this cycle over and over and over again. Now, this goes on for 5 years, for 10 years, for 20 years. And then one day after they wake up, they head into the bathroom and they happen to look up into the mirror. As they stand there staring into the mirror, they see a new crease or two around their eyes. And that's when they notice the gray hairs or the sagging skin. None of these were there before. And as they stare frozen, wondering, who is this person staring back at me? That's when the question that they dread suddenly dawns on them. What happened to the last 20 years of my life? Where did my life go? That person staring back at us in the mirror is us. It's you and I. It's the eagle from the story. And as we look deeper into the piercing gaze of those eyes staring back, we're reminded that our relationship, our marriage, is broken, that our finances are in disarray, our body creaks and aches everywhere, that maybe, just maybe, we're not where we want to be, not where we thought we would be. All of our hopes and our dreams, all that we once had, they're all gone. Somehow we've become the zombie, the pawns, cattle, and the sheep to be played, used, and herded. We stopped living a long time ago, and now we're merely existing. So how did this happen? How did we become the chickens? Why do we hide our true selves in the shadows? Why do we dance to music we don't like? Why do we pretend that everything's okay when it's really not? This is the world that so many people live in today, A world where so many have forgotten about or given up on their dreams, the idea of the human potential. Instead, they live in autopilot, and they don't even realize that they're doing it. That mindset is stealing our future, but no more, not for us. We are going to get our lives back. But how are we going to do that? In order to answer that question, we need to first look at the world of an addict. Now, before an addict can seek any help or try to make any changes in his or her world, they must first recognize that they have an addiction. The same thing is true for a zombie. Before we can break free from the zombie existence, we must first acknowledge that we might be living as a zombie. This is an important starting point for us. We really need to understand this idea. Our life and the success and happiness that we have in it is a choice that we have to make. Now, everything that we've started talking about today, the idea of the human potential, this holds the key that our brain and the choices that we make with it is what we need in order to realize that the power that we have in the success equation comes from the choices that we make. So now it's time for us to take another step. Here's our reflection for today. In your journal or your workbook or whatever it is that you're using, start a new page. There's one thing I'd like you to reflect on. Find a mirror somewhere and take a good look at yourself in that mirror. But please be sure not to make any judgments. We're not judging anything at all here. Instead, I want you to consider the possibility that maybe, just maybe, we've been living the life of a zombie. That's it. Now, as you think about this idea, I want you to consider how you feel about it. How does it make you feel? What thoughts and or emotions pop into your head or your heart? And whatever you think or feel, simply jot some notes down in your journal. That's it for today. Here's our final thought. A man or a woman's reach should exceed his or her grasp, or what's a heaven for? This is from a little poem written by Robert Browning. Until next time, have an absolutely amazing day. See you very, very soon.